Hi again then guys, and welcome to another special projects replica build, and this replica is kind of a hot off the press kind of build considering the news and revelations that we've been having about Gran Turismo Sport. Because the players are, of course, over the moon that Porsche will finally be coming to Gran Turismo. But in the meantime, for those who don't have the beta version of GT Sport, those who aren't planning on getting the beta, maybe you just haven't got a PS4 yet, whatever the case may be, maybe you still want to drive something that's at least close to a Porsche on GT6. And we have done Porsche tunes before. We did a 996 generation GT3, we also did a old school 911 RSR race car, both of which were pretty popular. This one is a bit slower. And interestingly, this is not a build for people who want to race the car, it's not a build for people who want to improve over the standard car, because that's generally what we do. We make the car, as you'd expect, more powerful, lighter, that kind of thing. This one actually isn't. This is just to be more accurate to real life, because of course the Roof 3400S, based on the Porsche Boxster, is a tuned version of the Boxster, so of course it is going to be better than the Boxster S was at that time. So this does have less spec than the Roof. So we'll run through that spec, see what kind of changes you need to make to accurately represent the Boxster S, for those who want to, and as far as the visuals, it's very simple. Basically do nothing. It's about as simple as it can get. You could change the rims if you want to, but none of the other rims are really any more accurate to the standard Porsche wheels anyway. And as far as the paint, as you can see, I've painted it silver, so just paint it whatever colour you want, basically. So, as I said, it's very, very simple for the visuals. So, we'll go over to the mechanical side of things first, and then we'll take it out to a racetrack to see what it can do. Now, as the name Boxster S 3.2 suggests, the real-life version of this car does have a smaller engine than the Roof 3400S, because of course the 3400 also refers to the engine size. There's nothing we can do about that though, which is kind of unfortunate from a replica point of view, but that's just something to note. Now, I've left it on Sports Hards. You could change that if you want to, of course, it's down to personal preference. Likewise with the brakes, I've left those stock because, of course, you don't want the car to feel too good. For suspension, I have upgraded it, but in particular so that we can lower some of the numbers. The ride height I've left on 130, but the springs we've slightly downgraded to 475 and 6, and then the dampers and anti-roll we've got on 2, which is still pretty good around the track, because of course the Boxster S was the top of the performance tree, so it should feel good, but at the same time you don't want it to feel ridiculously good. Camber and tow we've got neutral. You could go for a bit if you want to, but it's not really necessary on this car. As far as the gearbox, you don't actually need to do anything. I checked out the gear ratios of the 986 generation 3.2 Boxster S, and apparently it's the same as the gearbox which this model has, with the only potential difference being that the final drive ratio is 3.44 instead of 3.46. So if you want to change that, you can. I've opted to leave it with the gearbox that it comes with, primarily for two reasons. One, because it changes gear in a more smooth, realistic way than the race gearbox does, and also because, as I've mentioned recently in some of my GT Sport videos, you do get that whine with the race gearbox that comes from the straight cut gears, and you just don't want that on a replica like this if at all possible. So those are the reasons that I've chosen to do that, but on the opposing side of the argument, the 3.44 final drive might sway you in that direction instead. As far as the diff, I've gone for the lowest initial torque, highest acceleration, and lowest braking, but of course, feel free to change those numbers if you want to, or if you just fancy trying something different, just to see what it's like. As far as power, I actually do not have an oil change on this car. If you do have an oil change, you'll need to adjust the power limiter accordingly. I would recommend doing this on a brand new Roof 3400S, then it'll be exactly the same. But it depends. So as far as the power, you just want to reduce it down to 260 horsepower, which doesn't sound that great by today's standards, but that's the amount of power that this car had. Times have changed pretty rapidly. Now, as far as the weight, again, it is heavier, but not by much over the Roof version. An extra 20 kilos is all you need. I've opted to put that all the way to the back. That doesn't actually change the PP at all. It's just something that I chose to do. It doesn't even increase the weight distribution that much. It doesn't change it at all in terms of numbers. Obviously in practice it does, but you don't have to do that. So it's a pretty simple setup to go for, and incidentally, it actually rounds off really nicely, as you can see, to 450 pp. So you could potentially, although it's not a racing build, use it in, say, seasonal events or online races if you wanted to. But that's it for the tune. What about how it performs? Overall then, it almost goes without saying that this is one of those replica builds not for people who are looking for monstrously quick or mind-blowing performance cars, but just people who are, as many Gran Turismo players apparently are, fans of the Porsche brand, fans perhaps of the Boxster, or at least just want to have at least some idea of what Porsche could feel like were it on Gran Turismo, because of course the roofs are by definition faster than the Porsche models, so this brings you back down to reality a bit more, allows you to compare it to what the Porsches are gonna be like on the game, and it's just kind of that bridging of the gap for those who can't wait to get the Porsches, but obviously have to wait. So if you do decide to use this build, obviously I hope you have a lot of fun with it, and if you'd like to keep up with other tunes, of course you can sub down below, or check out the playlist for around 200 other special projects, which we've also done. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.